The first Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall.
Before the headlines, before the courtroom, before the trial that's sending shockwaves through the industry, there was a warning. It came from a man whose voice was as iconic as his silence was telling. Prince wasn't just a musician, he was a visionary, and toward the end of his life, that vision grew darker, more urgent, and impossible to ignore. They don't just want your music, he once said, they want your silence. At the time, many dismissed his words as paranoia, the ramblings of a genius growing more eccentric with age. But now, in a federal courtroom packed with reporters and music executives alike.
Did he have health problems?
That I don't know, right? What I know is that he was really health conscious. He was a vegan. He didn't abuse alcohol. I didn't know of him abusing drugs. He worked out, so.
Those same words have come roaring back, dragged into the light by an unlikely voice, Sheila E. Her testimony stunned the gallery, not just because of what she said, but because of who she was speaking for. Prince had trusted her with his final fears, his darkest suspicions, and his unspoken plans. And now, years later, as damning evidence piles up against Shaun Diddy Combs, it's becoming impossible to pretend those fears weren't real. This isn't just another celebrity trial, it might be the unmasking of a machine hidden in plain sight, one powered not by fame or fortune, but by manipulation, coercion, and secrets too dark for daylight.
That also really concerned me because it made me think that, wow, so you mean you do all these things to take care of yourself and you die so young?
Prince saw it coming. He tried to stop it. And now, from beyond the grave, he may finally succeed. But how deep does this go? And what exactly did Sheila E. reveal that has everyone, from fans to executives, finally paying attention? No one saw it coming, not like this. On day 7 of the explosive federal trial against Shaun Diddy Combs, the courtroom went still as Sheila E. took the stand. To the public, she's known as the fierce percussionist who once shared the stage with Prince. But what she revealed under oath went far beyond music.
He set the tone by immediately, as the first witness, taking jurors back to 2016. It was March 5th when Flores said he responded to a call from hotel staff of a woman in distress on the 6th floor.
It wasn't just testimony, it was a reckoning. Sheila E. didn't arrive to defend herself, her career, or even her legacy. She came carrying something far heavier, Prince's final warnings. She spoke with calm resolve, but the weight of her words shifted the atmosphere in the room. She claimed Prince had confided in her about an invisible network of power, one that existed beneath the glitz of the music industry, a machine fueled by silence and fear. She was clear, Prince didn't fear death. He feared what came before it, being erased, being discredited, being silenced. Sheila's voice didn't shake, even as she dropped bombshell after bombshell.
The first witness, former Intercontinental Hotel security guard Israel Flores, testified about responding to that now infamous incident, speaking with Combs and his ex-girlfriend, a key witness in this case, Cassie Ventura.
Claiming that Prince had named names and pointed fingers long before any lawsuit ever reached the press. And at the center of those warnings, one name appeared again and again, Diddy. This wasn't just courtroom drama. This was the opening of a hidden chapter in music history, one written in whispers, threats, and phone calls made in the middle of the night. Sheila E. was no longer just a witness. She had become the keeper of a prophecy, and the moment she started to speak, that prophecy started to unfold. To the outside world, Prince was enigmatic, brilliant, theatrical, and unbothered by the chaos of fame. But behind closed doors, according to Sheila E., he was consumed by something far more sinister than stage fright or studio stress.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man.
In the final months of his life, she claimed, Prince grew increasingly paranoid, not about fading relevance or artistic control, but about being watched, manipulated, and ultimately silenced. He reportedly told her late at night, "It's not just about owning your masters, it's about who owns you." The phrase haunted her then, and now it haunts the courtroom. Sheila described a Prince who believed the music industry wasn't just broken, it was weaponized. He spoke of secret meetings, unseen gatekeepers, and whispered warnings from others who'd seen too much. One call in particular stayed with her.
Now, as far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that Both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
Prince told her, "There are people at the top playing God. If I speak too loud, they'll shut me down." His fears weren't abstract, they were tied to real people, real events, and real threats. Sheila said he believed powerful figures within the industry were using fame as bait, dragging artists into situations where their compliance could be bought, or worse, filmed. The more he pulled away from the system, the more isolated and anxious he became. He skipped events, avoided certain executives, and warned Sheila never to attend industry parties where specific names were on the guest list.
Music mogul Shaun Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, "My concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors."
Prince wasn't just fearing death, he was fearing erasure, sabotage, and being framed. The question now isn't whether he was right, it's how long people knew and why they stayed silent. It was supposed to be just another industry gathering, exclusive, high profile, and glittering with fame, but what unfolded at Paisley Park that night left Prince shaken to his core, and according to Sheila E, it marked the beginning of the end. Around 2006, Diddy allegedly requested to host a private event at Prince's estate. Pressured by mutual industry associates, Prince reluctantly agreed, though something about it didn't sit right.
Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case.
Sheila described the night in chilling detail: the red carpet, the champagne, the stars. But once the press disappeared and the doors were sealed, everything changed. Guests were forced to surrender their phones and personal security, something Prince had never allowed before. He turned to Sheila and said, "This isn't my party anymore." Inside, the atmosphere shifted. Sheila witnessed scenes she'd never seen inside those sacred walls. Suggestive performances, substances passed without question, and a complete collapse of the safe, artistic space Paisley Park once represented. Then came the moment that still gives her chills, a restricted area, roped off and heavily guarded, where only a handful of people were allowed. Prince glanced toward it. That's where the real party is. Sheila didn't enter. The next morning, Prince told her something had followed Diddy into his home. Something dark. He looked different, nervous, haunted. "That was the last time I let him in my house," he said, "and something tells me it's already too late." That night wasn't just a party. It was a warning, a shift, a ritual masked as celebration, and Prince knew it. What Sheila E revealed next didn't sound like music industry politics. It sounded like a psychological war. According to her testimony, Prince believed the music business had evolved into something far more dangerous than contracts and chart positions. It had become a system of control, financial, emotional, and above all, psychological. He told her, "They don't just want your hits, they want your silence. And if they can't buy it, they'll bury you." Sheila recalled Prince's growing obsession with NDAs, backroom meetings, and legal tactics designed not to protect privacy, but to suppress truth. He had warned her that careers were made or destroyed, not based on talent, but on obedience. It wasn't about who had the best voice, it was about who kept their mouth shut. Sheila claimed Prince had started keeping detailed notes about secret deals, watching which executives were connected to whom, and following whispers about people who disappeared from the spotlight after knowing too much. But it wasn't just contracts, it was surveillance. Prince allegedly told her, "They record everything, I mean everything." The parties weren't just wild nights, they were setups. A place where artists were lured, intoxicated, and unknowingly filmed, only to find their careers held hostage by the footage. Sheila said he believed this system was how power was transferred, not through money, but through secrets. And once they had something on you, they didn't need to threaten you, you'd silence yourself. Prince had uncovered the blueprint of an empire built on leverage, and he knew if he kept digging, it might cost him everything. The phrase alone, freak-off parties, sounded like a tasteless rumor, but in court, under oath, Sheila E claimed that they were far more than debauchery. They were operations. According to Prince, these weren't spontaneous gatherings, but engineered traps designed for power and silence. He told her the most disturbing part wasn't what happened during these events, but what happened after. They film everything. He warned, that's how they get you. Sheila testified that Prince believed these events were meticulously documented without consent. Artists thought they were letting loose in private. What they didn't realize was that the footage would one day own them. And the ones who tried to push back, they didn't just fall off, they vanished. Prince had allegedly told her about singers, rappers, producers, people with buzz 1 month and nothing the next because they refused to play along, or worse, tried to expose what was really going on. Sheila said Prince feared that even he had been caught on film, maybe not in action, but simply in proximity, and that possibility haunted him. This isn't just dirt, he reportedly told her. This is currency. They own you with it. The courtroom was silent as Sheila explained how Prince once described these freak-off parties as a new form of slavery, one where chains were replaced by tapes, and instead of whips, there were whispers that could end a career. The scariest part? No one ever knew if they were on camera until it was too late. Prince didn't just believe this was real, he believed it was systematic. A machine designed to break anyone who thought they were free. To the public, Diddy was a mogul, a producer, a hitmaker, a cultural force. But to Prince, as revealed in Sheila E's testimony, he was something much more dangerous. Sheila stated that Prince didn't view Diddy as a rival or a peer, but as a handler, someone who had crossed a moral line and was now enforcing the rules of a system designed to trap and silence artists. He's not just playing the game, Prince reportedly told her, he's running part of it. Sheila explained that Prince believed Diddy's meteoric rise wasn't just about talent or timing, it was about compliance. While Prince was punished for trying to speak out and reclaim his music, Diddy was rewarded for keeping others in check. Prince warned her that artists tied to Bad Boy weren't just signing contracts, they were entering cages. Sheila recalled conversations where Prince described Diddy as the gatekeeper to parties that weren't about celebration, but about submission. Artists who resisted would spiral, those who conformed would succeed, but at a cost. Prince even pointed to the abrupt collapses of several acts, Mace, Total, Day 26, not as business failures, but as punishments. They didn't vanish, they were erased. Sheila said Prince feared the industry had created a network of psychological handlers, people who knew artists' weaknesses and used them as leverage. And at the top of that food chain, Prince believed, stood Diddy, not as an artist anymore, but as an architect of silence. The deeper Prince dug, the more convinced he became. Diddy wasn't just surviving the system, he was protecting it. It was past 2 a.m. when Sheila E's phone rang, an hour Prince never called, and when she answered, she knew immediately that something was wrong. His voice, once steady and smooth, now trembled with fear. "They're watching me," he said. "They want me quiet." Sheila testified that this final conversation, just days before his death, was the most disturbing moment they had ever shared. Prince wasn't afraid of death itself, he was afraid of people, afraid of being silenced before he could expose what he knew. He told her he'd already begun speaking with people tied to a federal investigation, hinting at sealed testimony, unreleased evidence, and conversations that were happening behind closed doors. These parties, these artists, the tapes, they're not rumors, he said. I've seen them. But the most chilling part came when Prince confided that some of the men involved were once his allies. He had walked into a gathering and realized the people around him weren't there for music. They were there to collect secrets. He felt trapped, betrayed, and terrified that he was running out of time. He ended the call with a message Sheila would never forget. "If I go down, it'll be because I tried to save someone who didn't want saving." At the time, she assumed he meant a fellow artist, but now, after everything that's come out in court, she believes he was talking about Diddy. That night, Prince wasn't just calling to warn her, he was calling to leave proof. His final words echoed with urgency. "Don't let them twist my legacy, and if something happens, remember this call. Say it loud if I can't." The next morning, he was gone. What started as whispers and paranoia suddenly had weight. Paper trails, recordings, signatures. Sheila E's testimony didn't just stir emotions, it cracked open the gates of evidence. The courtroom wasn't ready for what came next. Prosecutors introduced a sealed envelope from Prince's personal attorney, recovered after his death. Inside were 3 NDAs, one from a female vocalist describing a coerced performance at a 2010 Hamptons party linked to Diddy's team, another from a male session guitarist referencing footage secretly recorded in Miami, and a third, unsigned but drafted for a rising rapper detailing hush money terms for special appearances. These weren't abstract fears, these were blueprints of control. Then came the audio file, Prince rehearsing an interview that never aired. "They'll call it networking," he said, "but it's harvesting." The jury leaned forward, hearing in his voice the same urgency Sheila had described. As if that weren't enough, a financial analyst took the stand and traced payments from shell companies through boutique security firms staffed by former military contractors, firms hired for private events on the same dates Cassie described as Diddy's freak-offs. The evidence didn't scream, but it whispered in sync. Even the metadata from a hotel keycard showing Prince's code reissued remotely the night before his medical emergency felt like a digital fingerprint of someone watching him. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed. Prince's nightmare was no longer just a theory, it had structure, names, timestamps, and legal teeth. For the first time, the jury wasn't just listening to stories, they were looking at the machine. The ripple effect was immediate and brutal. Within hours of Sheila E's testimony and the prosecution's evidence drop, the entertainment world began to fracture in real time. Social media exploded with hashtags like #TrustedPaisley while veteran producers who had stayed silent for decades posted cryptic emojis, eye symbols, broken chains, and hourglasses. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it was panic. Inside the Manhattan headquarters of Bad Boy Records, 2 senior executives reportedly took indefinite leave, their names suddenly absent from corporate emails. At Warner Music, a confidential memo ordered staff to preserve all documents tied to artist agreements, fueling speculation that subpoenas were imminent. Even streaming platforms, usually silent observers, scrambled to audit their archives, terrified of what hidden footage might surface. Lawyers fielded urgent calls from labels wanting to know how airtight their NDAs really were. Music journalists, once dismissive of Prince's warnings, issued quiet retractions. Maybe he wasn't paranoid, maybe he was early. As if on cue, old interviews, unreleased footage, and former artist statements began resurfacing, each one sounding more like evidence than nostalgia. Meanwhile, behind courtroom doors, Judge Subramanian scheduled an emergency chambers meeting to discuss expanding the evidentiary scope, signaling that more sealed material could surface. It was no longer just about Diddy, it was about an entire ecosystem built on silence. And now, that silence was breaking. For the first time, the industry wasn't controlling the narrative, it was reacting to it, nervously watching its foundations tremble under Prince's posthumous voice. By the time court adjourned that day, no one could deny it. Prince was speaking again, not through music, but through memories, recordings, and the courage of the one person he trusted most. What began as the trial of Shaun "Diddy" Combs had morphed into something far bigger, a dismantling of the veil covering an entire era of the music industry. Sheila E didn't just testify, she resurrected Prince's prophecy, and through NDAs, shell companies, lost voicemails, and eerie keycard data, the prosecution gave voice to the one man who had warned us all. The gallery sat frozen as Prince's handwritten message flickered on the screen. "Your silence won't protect you." It wasn't just a statement, it was a final act of rebellion. For years, people called him eccentric, elusive, difficult. But what if he was simply early? What if the same pain he encoded in songs was a coded warning no one wanted to hear? Now that pain was echoing in courtrooms, contracts, and careers. The story was no longer about rumors or paranoia, it was about control, surveillance, and the price of telling the truth. And as Diddy stared blankly at the table, avoiding the eyes of the world, it became clear that something had shifted forever. Whatever the jury decides, one thing is certain: the ghost of Prince walked into a federal courtroom and left no one untouched. In a world where silence was currency, he spoke louder in death than most ever dared in life. And now the question hangs like smoke over the industry. Who else knew? And who's next to speak?